Hello, everybody. I'm here today to talk about a text change around the definitions section in section 2 of the Number Policy Resource Manual. Next slide, please. Here's a brief history of this. This came to us late last year, and it's gone through a couple of revisions so far in the text. Next slide, please. Here's the problem statement as it came to us. The main issue that was raised by a community member was that there's a graphic in our policy manual that does not have alt text or any other description of it. So if someone had a disability, site-related disability, or perhaps in the event that the NRPM was translated, this could cause issues as information would be lost. So we were asked to take a look at that. Next slide, please. This is the definition and the graphic as it exists today in the NRPM. It's just a very simple one sentence which says responsibility for management of address space is distributed globally in accordance with the hierarchical structure shown below. And then that's the graphic that exists today in the NRPM. Next slide, please. These are the definitions that currently exist that are related to the graphic that is in the NRPM today for reference. Next slide, please. All right, so the issues as were brought to us. So the original proposal suggested that we replace the image. However, we believe the image is useful as it does kind of very quickly describe the relationship between the different entities. So the AC suggested to leave the image in and just add some text in addition to it. As feedback from PPML, a number of members noted that the term ISP is in this graphic and that it is perhaps better use the term LIR, which is local internet registry, to better align with the rest of the policy manual, and also to, as part of our cleanup, to remove the overloaded term ISP from the manual. Next slide, please. All right, so the final questions for the day are, does the addition of the text add value to the NRPM? Does the update from the ISP to LIR clarify the text? Do you think there's any additional text that needs discussion? And are there any other issues raised by this update that which needs to be considered? So I don't see, there was missing a slide, I thought. Well, I guess the slide is missing out of the deck. So anyway, there was a slide that I thought showed the actual text as we intended, but it looks like that got left off the deck. Anyway, we're open for your comments and questions about this. The updated text has been posted to PPML, so it is there for sure.
If we could get the discussion question slide up, that's, I find it was helpful to refresh. Since
that's the second to last slide.
There we are. And we will open up our queues again for discussion. We have got some good time available. So if you have a comment or question, please go into the Q&A or raise your hand. And I see we have our first question, so let's go to that. Oh, I didn't mean to raise my hand.
All right, Chris Woodfield with Twitter. This proposal should be uncontroversial and clarifies the text. It could be argued that this is editorial. Was that discussed and dismissed at any point?
Andrew, was that discussed?
So it is discussed, and actually our plan is to make this editorial. We wanted to bring this to the community after the discussion of ISP and LIR to clarify that that is indeed the community's direction. So the direction we do intend to take is to make this editorial from this point going forward, assuming there are no issues raised in today's discussion.
Let's go to our raised hands. Let's go to Cy first, please.
All right, Cy, you can unmute yourself now.
And name affiliation, please, always.
Yeah, my name is Saidlu Matapalli. I'm from Matapalli Technologies. Actually, my question is that internet service provider to local internet registry, right? This is means suppose if I am chatting in Facebook and Twitter, think about two examples. So I have a link about matapalli.com. So when I paste in the chat box, sometime it will come with some HTML with the included images down. Download automatically, but in the Twitter chat, they will not accept only text. So these kind of difference between the social media platform, other companies, as their regulation in this policy.
So I have to ask you to keep your question or comment on the policy, and the policy, as I understand it, is just whether or not, the image, we're just talking about the text, the image that's in the current manual, and whether or not it should be replaced or not. So could you comment on that? If you have some other questions, we can deal with them offline in our breakout rooms.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Let's go to our Q&A.
All right, we have a question from Scott Morazot with the IRS. I support making the guide accessible, even if it's just a single image without alt text. The text seems fine.
Thank you.
Let's go to our next hand up here. Donnie Lewis.
All right, Donnie, I'm allowing you to unmute yourself.
Go ahead, Donnie, and name and affiliation, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
There we are. We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Donnie Lewis. I'm from the Obsidian Group Incorporated. And just from looking at the image and the text, to me, it seems clear enough. And as far as changing the letter ISP to LIR, the last thing we need to have is more acronyms. I think the ISP and what it implies is clear. So I don't see why changing ISP to LIR would make things less clear, except adding yet another acronym that we will have to keep track of.
So I'll note to you that the acronym LIR is already used throughout the number policy manual and is actually formally defined in our definition section, whereas ISP is not. And so I think actually moving to LIR, even though it is another acronym and maybe one that is not, people aren't as familiar with outside of this community, is probably more accurate, as organizations who act as LIRs, local internet registries, are not always internet service providers in the traditional sense of selling internet transit service to someone.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, Donnie, or did you have any further follow-up?
I have no further comment on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And are you supportive of the policy?
Yeah, overall, I think the image with the text on it is very clear to me. So everything else I'm okay with.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, and that's the beauty of putting up your hand, because we can do some follow-up. Okay, let's go to our 2 Q&A, and after our 2 Q&A are cleared, we are going to close the queue. So please type a quick query if our 3 Q&A now. We'll do the 2, then we'll go to the mic, and then we'll go back to what might be our last comment. If you do want to get in the Q&A, please just type the word Q or something, so we will save your spot, and then you can take your time to type, or put your hand up. But at the end of these 2 comments, we will close off. Let's go ahead with our 2 next comments.
All right, a comment from Nia Brown with Amazon Web Services. I support this policy. Accessibility work like this is important.
Thank you, Nia. And from Joe.
Joe Provo with Google and ARIN-AC. Support is written plus editorial.
Okay, we are now closing the queues, and thank you, Gary Geeson, for using the techniques. It proves it works. So let's go to Kevin while our last 2 people type their question. Kevin Bloomberg, go ahead.
All right, Kevin, you're unmuted.
Thank you. Kevin Bloomberg, The Wire. Any policy that can be fast-tracked from a accessibility point of view should absolutely be done. It's as long as the terminology is not being changed, if it's improving accessibility, that should absolutely be a priority, and I agree with that and support this policy from that respect. Regarding the terminology ISP versus LIR, my understanding is the term ISP has been used within the ARIN region for many, many years. It had a very formal sort of description that does not necessarily relate to what many consider an internet service provider today. The term LIR, on the other hand, has been used in many other regions ubiquitously over the years and is probably more accurate today. I don't think how the word ISP was defined 20 years ago and on is necessarily where an ISP is in its terminology and understanding today. So I actually do prefer being consistent both globally in terms of how we use the term LIR, as well as the fact that it is a more generic meaning than ISP. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Any follow-up, Andrew, or you take the feedback?
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. All right. We did actually get in a few Q&As, so we will finish off those Q&A and then we will move on to the next policy. So staff, next one, please.
All right, Lee Howard with IPv4.global by Hilco Streambank. I don't think LIR adds clarity when the NERPM uses both terms. Section 4.2 is about ISPs, not LIRs, as currently written.
Okay, thank you, Lee.
So my
let's go to
follow-up to Lee on
Go ahead.
that item is that the NRPM cleanup working group is working on doing the LIR ISP cleanup. So that is on their to-do list as well to harmonize throughout the document.
Okay. Let's go to Gary's comment next, please.
All right, Gary Geeson with CentralLogic and also the ARIN AC. I support as written. It doesn't change any policy, improves accessibility for those with screen readers, and support use of LIR as it helps harmonize definitions within the NERPM and among the RIRs.
Okay, thank you for that. And just a note that Lee Howard thanks Andrew. He did figure the working group would fix it. So let's get our last Q&A and then we'll finish up this proposal. So Frank, please.
All right, Frank Bulk with FiberNet Communications. I support the policy as communicated.
Okay. All right, thank you to all. Last minute one that came in, we'll take it. Let's take Gus's, even though he didn't put the Q in.
All right, Gus with Cogent Communications. I support this policy as written.
Okay, the Q thing did seem to work. So everyone, if we can try and make use of that on our next two policies, I'd appreciate it. But this feedback will be provided the AC. Thank you to Andrew Dahl for the presentation, and John, over to you.